Hello everybody, it's me John of the Brunish UK YouTube channel. I am back today with another discussion video and unfortunately it is talking about G5, what I feel killed G5, and I'll get onto that right after this. Many of you out there, many of the fans that watch G5, and no doubt people already know the answer, and probably many of you already know the answer. I don't even need to make this video because it's so obvious. I want to talk about this because when G5 Fest was announced and we started getting character designs and the fact it was going to be a fully CGI and that the fact it was still going to be within the time scale, give or take, of G4, G4 was going to be in there in some degree. And then we find out, obviously, there's going to be a bit of a time skip. So it's like future generations, because obviously the subtitle for the G5 film that started it all off was A New Generation. The fact that it was still within the time skip, within the time zone. Yes, there was a bit of a time skip between the end of G4 and the beginning of G5. But at that time when it first got announced, we just didn't really know how long had happened. And then we get the first teaser trailer, and we start, and for the film and everything, and we see that a lot of time has passed because there's actual technology in there. All the ponies are using cell phones or mobile phones and this, all this technology and very advanced and video games and things like that, all this kind of stuff splattered around. Yes, there was a little bit of that in G4, but it wasn't they didn't really emphasize it as much as they did with G5, sorry. With G4, they didn't emphasize it as much. Yes, there was probably little nods to things here and there, mostly because with G4, when they noticed there was a larger demographic watching the show, they later on in later seasons decided to add little Easter eggs in there and little pop culture things here and there throughout the seasons, say after think from season 4 onwards, when they started to come up with stories and started to kind of put little things in there that the older demographic would understand more than the young kids. And but with G5, it was like a new generation, it was a future, and it was very much in your face. This is futuristic, and they have our kind of technology. So that was very much in the forefront, Now, when the film finally released and it came out on Netflix, and I enjoyed it. I actually do like the G5 film. I actually thought it was a good start. It was a strong start, and you could tell that they were building up on something, and I thought this could be cool. The fact that you got like a lovely little nod, homage in there to the G4 characters. And the fact is that all these characters, I fell in love with Izzy. I thought, Izzy was my favourite character in the film. I just loved her. Loved how innocent she was. She reminded me of like a mixture of kind of like a Pinkie Pie of G5, and I really liked her. And then, the film came and went. When I watched it a fair few times, when it first went up, I actually really enjoyed it. And then, obviously, that was supposed to be the start up, and then the series would follow. Before the series actually started, of course, we got one of the fillers, one of the specials, which was supposed to serve as a bridge gap between the events of the film and the series. And then we noticed the shocking change of animation style when it came to the special. And I was like, wow, this is a drastic change. Obviously, like with the film, with the G5 film, it was like Pixar quality animation. It was beautiful to watch and to look at. Look at how many times it's been memed the baked beans. You know, when the baked beans get spilt on the floor and you see it all, and it's just perfectly rendered baked beans on the floor. It's just like, that's, you know, it was just sublime animation. I thought the animation was gorgeous, and the characters looked really vibrant. The world looked vibrant, and it was, you know, I just loved the animation. I knew, obviously, when it comes to a TV series, the animation wasn't going to be as good as that, because when it's a TV series, it's different. And then, obviously, they recast all the main characters, voice cast as well, which isn't the main issue here per se, but obviously, you know, they had like big names in the film, and they decided to kind of like recast all the characters for the series. So yeah, basically with the special, I watched the special, yeah, it was a special. They dubbed it as a special, and I was just like, I could see that there were what it was basically just, as we know, it was just meant to be like a bridge space gap thing between the events of the film and the series starting, and so it did its job to a degree, and it seemed to kind of feel like, you know, it was certainly going in a certain direction. But the animation was absolutely shocking compared to the film. It was almost like, you know, it was just like the budget was very restricted for that, and it did come over that way. Even though I had no idea if the budget was restricted, I'm just saying it came over that way with how much of a difference it was. And then when the series actually officially started for Make Your Mark, the animation was actually better. But I noticed throughout the run, all the specials, I noticed, because obviously the anime, I didn't realise until later, pretty much kind of like before Make Your Mark finished officially. And I found out, obviously, that there was more than one animation studio working on it. There was a separate studio working on the specials, and then there was another studio working on the actual main Make Your Mark series. Hence why there was a bit of a difference between the quality of the animation, which did actually make sense, because if it was the same studio doing the whole thing, it would have pretty much, I would have thought the animation would have been the same throughout the whole thing. But because we're using different studios, there was a bit of a difference with quality, because I noticed certain characters in the specials, they seem to kind of like, the animation seemed to get better, like the final couple of specials. Still not perfect, but because there was 4 specials altogether throughout the run, of course. The first 2 pretty much were exactly the same animation, very, very basic, very, very. I thought they were quite washed out, and the characters didn't really seem to emote. That they seemed very wooden, very robotic in how they came over. So yeah, but the main series itself, it seemed to kind of like the first series, the first number of episodes for the first, you know, for the first lot of episodes, you could tell they were kind of working towards something. You could tell that within the first series they were working towards something with it. And then when the series 2 started, or the continuation of the episodes, but they dubbed it as series 2, I noticed it kind of like took a step back drastically, and then it slowly started to move forward again. And it did this every single time a series started, where they seemed to kind of go back on themselves, step back about 4 paces, and then slowly work away towards something. But as you carry on, as you were watching it, it was almost like what you thought they were working towards drastically changed. They were very much trying to drive Sunny, because she was the main character. They were trying to make her very strong. They were trying to develop her character a lot more. And I thought all the characters in the movie, all the main characters, I thought they were really well developed for the film. I thought the film did a good job in showing these new characters off. But the series really failed the characters. The Make Your Mark series, I think, failed the characters, because you could tell there was a drastic change in the characters. You know, I think the only characters that seemed the strongest when it came to the Make Your Mark, the strongest of the main characters for me personally was later on when obviously when Misty comes into it, and later on when she joins and becomes friends, when she leaves Overleen, and becomes friends, and she becomes the an element bearer basically. And Misty, I think that's where the story changed, because you could definitely tell that they were working towards something else. They were definitely going to try it, because they wanted to do a lot more emphasis on the G4. They wanted to bring G4 characters back. You could tell that they were working towards that, or hoping for that. But they had a lot of brick walls and a lot of restrictions, which made them, obviously they've had to rewrite the story. It felt very rushed because of this. It was almost like it was a last minute thing, and they drastically tried to rewrite the whole thing without having to put a delay on it. And with doing that, the writing was pretty much all over the place, because like the scenarios, it was very much play, and very much anything else. Like the substance wasn't really there. There wasn't much substance to the series as it went on. It seemed to kind of like was just play, fun, laugh, and then there was very little else, because what they were trying to formulate, they had to change it probably either on the fly, or they were forced to change the scripts, or the writing was forced to be changed because of the restrictions, and of course, and it just literally just went in a certain direction, and they've very heavily, you could tell with the writing it changed, and they put much more emphasis on Misty, the whole arc with Misty, and she became technically the strongest character out of all of them. She had, the whole arc with her being really, really shy. Overleen was basically just using her to spy on Sunny and her friends, and she basically, as it goes on, as you see, she becomes much more stronger. She starts to kind of like be a double agent, working as like a double agent between kind of like helping Sunny and her friends kind of spying Overleen and what she's getting up to. And obviously she's spying for Overleen in return. It's like a double agent thing. And then obviously eventually she becomes friends with Sunny and everybody. And she then becomes friends and becomes an element bearer, really. And the whole arc for Misty, I believe. I apologise. The whole arc for Misty, I feel, is much, much stronger, and you can definitely tell that they deliberately changed. They deliberately changed what they was originally going to go with, and then they just kind of went with Misty, and Misty really became the most rounded character in the whole thing. All the other characters, I won't say none of the other characters were well-rounded. I know like Zip and Pip actually got a pretty good little arc as well. Zip and Pip did get a little bit of a good arc. I think Zip and Pip were the only other characters besides Misty, I think, that actually got a proper rounded development. But yeah, it's unfortunate, really. Even though I do like Misty, like I just said a moment ago, that when with the film, Izzy was my favourite character. I loved her. I just fell in love with her. But when it came later, I felt Izzy didn't really do much. Her character didn't really develop that much for me, and my attention drifted away from Izzy, and I really, really liked Misty. I thought she was much stronger as a character. I loved her arc, and the songs that she's a part of like an ensemble. She does like mostly like I think she's part of a duet or a solo song that she does, and then obviously there's an ensemble song in the latter series for Make Your Mark, and I love the songs that she's a part of, and I just love her as a character. I thought, because obviously she became much stronger, more rounded, and So getting to the main point of this video, I just wanted to kind of do like a little round trip of everything, but to finish this video off, I want to just talk about what I think killed it. And obviously I've kind of answered this question in my brief description of the whole thing, but what killed it was the restrictions that they had. The restrictions is what killed it. You could tell. I don't want to put too much. I don't want to be too heartless, because the people behind the scenes of Make Your Mark, because obviously, like I said, the movie was actually quite strong. It actually did a good job at introducing us to these new characters and starting things off. It did a good job at doing that. But when it came to the Make Your Mark series, the writing becomes much more sloppier, and you can definitely tell there was a drastic change. Like almost as if the scripts had been hastily or had been forcibly by whomever to be changed, and it causes a little bit of a confusion, because you think it's going in one direction, but then it actually becomes different, and it becomes technically Misty becomes technically the main character or the main focus of the series, even though it was supposed to be Sunny. But yet Misty really, she gets most of the limelight. She gets all of the development. All the development pretty much is just Misty and Zip and Pip. They're the only characters that seem to get any sort of development, like full rounded development. But when it came but obviously as well, they wanted to bring in a lot more references with G4. Like, obviously with the film, they managed to do that little opening sequence with the G4 characters, which was really cool to see. And then they also brought in Spike as well, even though that's another discussion for another day. They also did that little Twilight came back. It was an artifact that Sunny found, and it played like a recorded, like holographic projection, basically. But basically, I think most of us know the answer to what killed it, and it was basically the heavy restriction. They obviously wanted to possibly bring back characters that would definitely still be alive at that time. Characters that would definitely still be alive at that time, like Spike definitely would still be alive because he's a dragon and they can live a lot longer than ponies. Also, alicorns, like Princess Twilight and Cadance and Celestia and Luna and all that, they can live a lot longer than a normal elf pony or whatever. Because obviously they're technically like immortal beings. I mean, Celestia and Luna are supposed to be possibly thousands of years old in G4. And Twilight, technically, even though things have gone horribly wrong when Twilight took the throne, so to speak, when she took over from Celestia and Luna, basically everything went pear-shaped, and a massive fraction of this, basically the world just fell apart. Basically, the Pegasi didn't want anything to do with the Earth ponies, and the Earth ponies didn't trust the Pegasi, and the same as all the other ponies and different creatures, and everyone was on their own plane of existence, and they would never mingle, which was definitely not the case when Twilight was about. So yeah, basically, and what I think killed it for me is the changing of the writing and the restrictions. I mean, I can forgive the animation style, the animation differences to a degree. I mean, the animation is only one factor. For me, animation isn't everything. You could have a series that looks really, really basic, but if the writing is good, that is, for me, what can make a series. Because there is some great examples of animation out there where the animation is relatively quite basic. It's not going to win an Oscar for the animation. However, the writing is sound and it's really, really good. But with Make Your Mark, the writing is not that great. The animation is fine for the Make Your Mark series and the specials. It's okay, you know, but it's the writing that really, really, really shines through in a negative way. I think it's very sloppy writing. It is very sloppy writing, but I think because of the heavy restrictions that they had, because of Discovery Family, of course, that is the main reason. Is because Discovery Family, they have they have the rights to the main characters for some reason. Hasbro, of course, have rights to MLP. Of course they do, because it's their property. But Discovery Family have it's kind of split. The rights are split between Discovery Family and Hasbro. Hasbro, of course, gave them the right to be able to go ahead and make the series anyway, Make Your Mark. But when it came to allowing character appearances, so every time a G4 character would be required to make an appearance, whether it was in like a memory, in past tense, for instance, then basically they would have to pay Discovery Family each time that character made an appearance an astounding amount of money per episode, or every time they used any of the G4 main characters, the main six basically. Any of the main six that made any sort of appearance in any episode, or whenever they made an appearance, each time they made an appearance, they would have to pay Discovery Family an astounding amount of money. And that's basically what happened, is because they just simply couldn't afford to pay, even though Netflix could afford to pay. But they were obviously working on a budget. They must have some kind of budget constraints for the series compared to the film. And probably the budget just wouldn't allow the additional fees every time they wanted. So by the looks of it, they wanted to really emphasize the G4 much more than they did. They wanted to probably bring more. They probably wanted to bring Twilight back more than once, or probably just bring her back completely. The whole heavy design difference with Spike as well. Everything, you can tell that they were really trying to get around the fees somehow, and just giving you little snippets here and there throughout the whole run from the film to the end of the series. Little snippets. They were giving you little Easter eggs here and there, but very little characters. There was hardly anything for the G4 characters making any kind of appearance or what have you, because of the fees involved. And I think that's what killed it, is because they literally were just trodden on eggshells. The writers just did not know what to do. And they were just bringing up really random stuff, basically it could have been so much more. Make Your Mark could have been so much more. It could have gone on for longer. It could have been such a good, strong series. But possibly because of the budget not being anything quite like the film, and also the amount of money Discovery Family would wanted every time a G4 character made an appearance, or main character, the main six characters, then that really grounded a lot of progress. And obviously, with that said, they obviously wanted to emphasize the characters much more for G4. Certain scenarios, probably in past tense, so they wanted to bring up back more characters that would probably still be alive at that time, where in Make Your Mark. They wanted to bring some more characters back. They must have wanted to, but because they were having so many issues, they were just being beaten down every left, right, and centre, rejected possibly by Discovery Family, or they were just welcomed to so much money that they had to shell out just for an appearance, just for them to make an appearance, whether it was past tense or what have you, which I think is what really contributed to it to be, unfortunately killed off. I know the series did follow on with the Tell Your Tale, which was the little web series that they did for YouTube. But I think they kind of maybe emphasized a couple of extra things in that in the web series. But again, even for the web series, they would have had to have paid appearance fees, even for that. Well, it's unfortunate because even though it started off relatively quite strong, and it was obviously going in a certain direction. But then with the writing and everything, you can tell there's a change, quite a drastic change, and it becomes much more about play and fun, and very little substance to any of the episodes. So many of the episodes, there's very little happening, very little progress, and then Misty comes into it, and Misty technically just takes the limelight away from Sunny, and she becomes very much the character for G5. She becomes the best one, and then Zip and Pip are definitely close after her, I think, when it comes to any sort of character development. So that's my video. Thank you very much. Please let me know what you think about my thoughts. Obviously, like I say, I try not to be too heartless when it comes to. It's a series developed. It's for little kids. It's mostly for little kids, but yeah, I don't think it really did a good job of the legacy of what G4. I don't think it did a good enough job. I think they could have easily have made I think it might have been better if G5 was its own thing. If it had nothing to do with G4, it was just a completely original. It had no ties to G4 whatsoever. These characters were brand new. It was a different world, brand new world, different time, everything. If it had no ties to G4, I think they could have gotten away with a lot of the writing, and I think they could have got away with a lot of things. And I think they could have been a bit more creative. They could have maybe developed it differently, a completely different story altogether. But the fact is that it was anchored to G4, and they were hit by so many stumbling blocks during the production and the writing stages. They couldn't do what they wanted to do. They obviously they had a massive projection. Possibly they probably had it all formulated, the main story plot, but yet they couldn't exercise it. They couldn't go into that, and they had to change it. They just had to change all the scripts and the writing and the direction, and you can definitely tell there's a shift throughout from start to finish. And it's a shame. I would have liked it for G5 to have been what they fully properly set out for it to be. But unfortunately, it wasn't the case, was it? But anyway, there we are. But thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, comment and rate for more videos from myself. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this. No doubt I'll get some people commenting and giving me a proper lecture, which is also very cool. I mean, I do like it. I do like being educated, because I do forget certain things, certain details, and it's nice to be reminded of such. Nice to be reminded of certain details I've probably forgotten about. But thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.